Lewis Hine took 5,400 photographs and wrote hundreds of documents depicting the abysmal state of child labor practices from 1908 through 1940. Lewis Hine always had a love for taking photos, even when he was younger. He was born on September 26, 1874, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. His parents ran a popular coffee shop and a restaurant on Main Street. He went to high school and studied psychology, and he moved to New York in 1901 to go to college. Shortly after he went to the New York University, then he transferred to the Chicago University, and finally he ended up at the University of Columbia due to financial stress. 3 different colleges, all very prestigious schools. He was in college for 6 years. In 1904, at the age of 30, he got married to Sarah Ann Rich, and only 1 year later received his master's degree in psychology in 1905. Sarah was also born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and met Lewis Hine at school, and they quickly became friends. Eventually, they started to date. Lewis Hine got a job as a teacher at the Ethical Teaching School in New York. In the same year, he fell in love and got married to Sarah. He taught psychology for 3 years. During this time, he still took photos of life around New York, capturing the essence of the city and its many people. In 1905, he went to Ellis Island to take photos of immigrants. He would keep taking photos all the way until the National Child Labor Committee, NCLC, the committee that fights child labor, offered him a job he gladly accepted.
From 1908 to 1924, he took photos of children working in factories, cotton fields, coal mines, and among other locations. His photographs helped to reveal the harsh reality of child labor. In 1908, there were at least 1.75 million kids working in these jobs. His most famous photographs and documents were definitely focused on child labor. Most Americans did not know how harsh child labor was, so the NCLC wanted Hine to go undercover and take photos of children working in deplorable conditions. Hine helped reveal the injustice and horror of child labor practices with his camera. On December 12, 1912, Lewis and Sarah Hine had a child named Corydon L. Hine. In 1914, he went to the Colorado cotton mills to take photos. The cotton mills were dangerous because the children could inhale dust from the cotton. The cotton dust could cause chronic damage to their respiratory functions. In 1916, he traveled to California to take photos of the oyster shelling. He found that children working had cuts and bruises all over their feet because they had been stepping on oysters all day long. If the children inhaled the oyster dust, it could be toxic. The oyster dust could cause cuts in your lungs and or throat. In 1920, it was said that over half of the children stopped working. He traveled everywhere to record child labor all the way up until 1920. And in the 4 years, so between 1920 and 1924, he went to photograph World War I, WW1. In 1924, when many people had already seen these photos, it started to grab the attention of the Congress. His last published work for child labor was Men at Work, which he published in 1932. It was a book with lots of his work and photos and documents and stories. In 1938, laws were put in place so children 14 and under could stop working in such harsh and brutal conditions. The laws were called the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA. These laws were put in place because children should not work. Children should not work when their health, educational opportunities, or well-being is jeopardized. Photography can light up darkness and expose ignorance, said Louis Hine.
Louis Hine captured pictures about children working in sweatshops in terrible living conditions. There were kids that worked in the coal mines and died at a young age just because of the air they breathed. Some were captured in pictures, muddy and bloody. Hine exposed all of these situations and more with his camera. Most kids worked for 12 hours or more every day in these horrid conditions. The children did not get paid fairly. They barely got paid. Only 50 to 60 cents a day.
Louis Hine's wife died in 1939, just a year before his death. Hine essentially stopped working after losing his wife. He was slowing down and not feeling well, so he went to the doctor and he was told that he needed an operation. Something went wrong during the operation and he died the same day. He died in his beloved home, New York. He will always be remembered as the man who saw through the cruelty and exposed the world to repugnant and unjust working conditions that countless children experienced, and facility changed for the better.
The NCLC and Congress debated about the laws of child labor for a long time, so someone had to step up and provide evidence like Louis Hine did. Louis Hine was diplomatic in the way he provided evidence to a debating Congress through pictures and documents depicting the abuse. Pictures are a powerful tool when used for seeking truth and justice. In the end, it was a success, partly due to Louis Hine and his photography. The outcome was that child labor laws were put in place, and it became illegal to have children 14 years or under working. These laws were put in place in 1938 when Louis Hine had achieved success by giving children the ability to have an education and a chance for a normal childhood, leading to a more successful adults in the future.
Good job.